Alright, it's that time again. We have another very special indie game showcase lined up, as I'll be covering my favorite games from the Gamescom 2022 event. We played it over the nights of it. If you want to watch the uncut streams, they will be on the secondary channel. But for this video, this is going to be some of my favorite games, and there'll be links to all of them down in the description. For the first game, we have Astlibra Revision. Now, before we talk about this game, one very important detail. The footage you are seeing is played on the game's super difficult, masochistic, what is wrong with you, why do you do this to yourself difficulty. So, enemy damage, my damage, and so on is not reflective of the normal experience of this game. But this is a kind of like 16-bit or maybe just more of a 2D style action RPG, kind of like the old like Wanderers from Ys games. But where this game differentiates itself is having a lot, and I do mean a lot, of different systems and interaction of play. You can buy and craft different weapons, which as you use them will unlock different skills, which you can then activate to your character. And these skills come in the form of anything and everything, from being able to see enemies' health, to even double jump. Yes, this is an RPG upgrade to Metroidvania style game. There is an entirely massive passive tree that you'll be able to unlock different perks based on getting various, they're called grains, off of different enemies. The world itself is 100% handmade, and it is a linear story. And you'll get different weapons, you'll unlock summoning spells. Like, this feels very much like a 2D action RPG that also has like the multiple systems and depth of, say, a Nippon Ichi game. Now, with that said, one complaint that I do have about this game is that it is very off-paced from what I played in the demo. The demo starts with about 5 to 10 minutes of cutscene and exposition before you can even swing your first sword, or I guess first stick. And it is very old school, in the sense that you miss talking to one person, you did the wrong dialogue prompt, something like that, and you can literally miss the entire story chain and progression in this title, which I did on the stream, and I had to go back and actually find it when I played this on my own. Nevertheless, I did enjoy this game. If you like action RPGs, and looking for one that certainly looks like it's going to have depth and a lot of systems to play around with, then keep an eye out for Astlibra. And also, do yourself a favor and don't play this game on the ultra max difficulty level like I did. We now have Prim. This is a point-and-click adventure game in the stylings of like a Tim Burton animated series. We play as the Grim Reaper's daughter, aka Prim, who has been having strange dreams about going to the human world. And unfortunately, something strange is going on, and she is going to have to figure it out one puzzle and one item at a time. So this is your definitely standard point-and-click adventure game in terms of its design. You'll have to figure out how to get out of rooms, get around characters, and so on, using a collection of miscellaneous items, combining, crafting, and of course sometimes just clicking on everything in the environment hoping something will work. I do like how the game at the start gives you the unlock of hotspots so that you can actually figure out what elements in the environment you can click on. Your little demon spider eyeball thing that you see right there is used for puzzle solving, and I'm not sure there's additional characters that you'll get. The demo was a bit on the quick side. There's only really 2 major rooms, but it definitely shows a lot of charm with the aesthetics and storytelling. And I would say that for all the adventure game fans watching this right now, if you're looking for another one to play, then keep an eye out, no pun intended, for Prim. We now turn to How to Say Goodbye. This is a puzzle game. You play as Sendak, who one day dies in a car accident. and is now left to wander around the afterlife, trying to make sense out of things and learn what else there is to do now that they are no longer among the living. The puzzle design is pretty straightforward. You move by kind of dragging the various tiles. Anything that is on the ground can be moved and altered that way. Your mission is to basically move Sendak, as well as any important items, to the door. Get to the door, unlock it, and you move on to the next challenge. As the game goes on, different characters will be introduced or will show up, and this will change the rules for the puzzle solving for a specific period of time. This is definitely a game that is aimed a lot on the storytelling side of things, as the levels and your objectives will change based on what is happening. I really like the aesthetics of the game. It's very charming. While it's certainly not going to be the hardest puzzle game you've played, I think this game certainly has the charm to at least warrant a play for anyone who's looking for a more narrative-driven puzzle game. It was not my intention to find two point-and-click adventure games, both with a one-word title, but here we go. We have Clem up next. This aesthetic kind of reminds me a little bit more of Adventure Time, but we play as this character who looks like one part of a backpack, who has been tasked by a mysterious girl in order to collect weird things around their house. So while Prim was definitely more, I would say, moderate to maybe moderate easy in terms of its puzzle solving, Clem is a little bit more advanced. This is one of those games where you are not allowed to pick up an item until you actually know there is a use for it, which means of course doing a lot of backtracking, trying to figure out what is used where, that kind of thing. But I like the kind of in-universe charm of this game. You get a diary that updates and adds more stuff as you find clues, unlock more lore, that kind of thing. If you don't like point-and-click adventure games, or if you're looking one more that is on the easier side, I feel like Clem may be a little too advanced in that respect. But if you are someone who's looking for a challenge, then I would say definitely check this one out. For a puzzle game of a different flavor, we have Amber City. First off, I love the aesthetic of this game. It just looks gorgeous, and the level of detail is impressive. We play as a mysterious girl who wakes up in an abandoned city with the power to draw, release, and connect light from points to points. Your mission is to use this magical light in order to rebuild the city, figure out what's going on, and of course collect a variety of MacGuffins along the way. The puzzle solving is on the linear side. Each puzzle, your mission is going to be to figure out what light sources to move around and where. See, the challenge is that you can only absorb and give light within a certain radius around the character. But when you start adding light, you can add it in a chain. So what that means is that if you only give too much light in a specific chain, you may not be able to get it all back to then use it in another spot. The puzzle solving here, I would say, is more on the advanced side. This is more environmental puzzle and critical thinking, rather than figure out what MacGuffin you use where in an adventure game. And if you like those kinds of puzzles, I would definitely check out Amber City. If this sounds a little too complex for you, then this game may not be the best one. But we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we have, well, I'm not quite sure at this moment how many more indie games for this special spotlight. And as always, if you're interested in my thoughts on design, then check out my game design books. For entry-level students, we have 20 Essential Games to Study, and then the Game Design Deep Dive series that takes an extensive look at different genres, with more coming soon. Now for something with a little bit more action, we have Pocket Wheels. A game that is, well, one part platformer, one part racer, and one part toy commander. We play as a toy car that is driving around in a very big world, and it's up to us to look for MacGuffins, collect coins and batteries, and, well, just explore. Now, the demo itself was kind of limited to just one room, But the general process is that as a car, you can jump, which may not be completely realistic, or the ability to use nitrous and your hover power to essentially fly around the room like your own miniature car plane. But the general play of this one is that you're looking for various missions and quests, which if you can complete them, you'll unlock batteries, which represent the game's kind of platformer MacGuffin. If you're hoping for Gran Turismo F-Zero levels of racing, not going to find that one here. This is definitely more platformer first, and racer second or third. But for someone like me who likes platformers, it works out a lot more. So I would say that if you do enjoy your platformers and looking for one that definitely handles a lot differently, then definitely check out Pocket Wheels. I hope that there is a little bit more in terms of tech or more things you can do, but again, the demo definitely gives it a really good feel for what the main game is going to be about. We now turn to another platformer. This is A Webbing Journey. And if you remember last year, Webbed was one of my favorite games for just giving you the joy of swinging around in that moment-to-moment feel to it. A Webbing Journey does the similar, but in 3D. You play as a spider who, well, is gonna do spider things. You can do whatever a spider can. You can swing from webs, you can latch on and stick to just about anything, and the webbing that you can create can attach to things, and it all animates dynamically. So if you want to create bridges or just one really long strand, you can do that. So this is a game that the moment to moment is fantastic. Now with that said, however, for my audience, there is one little bit of a caveat. This is not going to be the Dark Souls of 3D platformers. The store page explicitly talks about this being more for like a casual, relaxing kind of game. So you won't be using your web swing to fight crime, defeat monsters, or things like that. You're going to do everyday tasks like collect acorns, get into an ancient tomb and solve basic puzzles, and other spider-related things. This is, I think, one of those really great games just for the movement feel alone, but if you are someone looking for a very challenging take on this, I would definitely recommend Webbed if you haven't played that. But while this game may not do too much to challenge someone like me, I just really fell in love with just the general movement of it, and I hope that we do see like more advanced challenges or have like a little bit of a bite, maybe not a spider bite, in terms of challenge for advanced players. We now turn to Chained Echoes. This is a 16-bit SNES-inspired JRPG. And right off the bat, the game looks gorgeous, with some impressive backgrounds and cutscenes that are built into it. But the main draw of this game is that it really feels like a game that was designed for somebody like me, who has kind of fallen out of favor of traditional style RPGs. So how this game does this, characters by default just run around the map, all encounters are fixed, there's no random encounters whatsoever, and the combat system kind of lies into this risk-reward of using overdrive. If you look at the meter in the upper left, every time you use a skill, the meter will move more to the right. When you get into the green section, all your characters will gain a buff. However, if you use too many skills and you don't cool off, you'll go into the exhaustion phase, that's the red section, and you will have a massive debuff and you'll take more damage. So the icon when you see in the upper left, when it shows you a color or an element of a skill, using that skill will actually move your bar back to the left. So they're selling this risk and reward of, do I play skills specifically to target the enemy or to lower my gauge? Characters will gain skill points across the entire group, and this is one of those games that I just really enjoyed and I wanted to see kind of where these systems go. So if you are a fan of turn-based RPGs and you haven't checked this one out yet, I definitely recommend it, and this is definitely one I'm going to be keeping an eye out for when it is released. We now have Togges, and this is a 3D puzzle platformer like that we played. Your mission is you can spread these different colored blocks as you touch them and create a chain, and you are trying to collect fruit by stacking them on top, and the blocks themselves essentially act as, or as they're called, Togges here, all act as kind of like your collector. Your actual device there can suck up Togges that you no longer need, and there is an explicit limit of the number of Togges you can have in any one area. Each area kind of reminds me a little bit of Mario Galaxy. It's just this like separate floating section with its own collection of collectibles, puzzles, that kind of thing. You'll eventually collect other colors of Togges that will give you unique abilities. They'll be able to stack more or less, they could connect to things, that kind of stuff. If you're hoping for, again, like a super advanced game, I don't know if Togges is really going to go that far, but this looks like a very charming title that I was really getting into in terms of what else they could do with these sections. So if you are looking for a platformer that's a little bit more about puzzle solving rather than precision, then keep an eye out for Togges. And now for something very different, we have the fabulous Fear Machine. This is a strategy global take over the world simulator? But we are in control of the Fear Machine, a device that will allow us to bend the world to our whim, but at the cost of becoming a part of the machine itself. And our mission is to use its various tools and minions to take over the world, or do whatever the heck we want to do using the power of fear, paranoia, and urban legends. So we played the demo of this one, specifically we played the tutorial of the demo of this one on stream. So the footage you're going to be seeing is going to be focusing on that. Your mission is to use various local legends in order to build up the sense of fear in each region. When fear is at a certain threshold, you're able to quote-unquote send your message out to control the masses. And you'll have to keep an eye out on your resources, as well as specific resources that are used to evolve your legends, making them more potent and affecting what they can do in each space. Now, this is definitely more on the kind of board game, tabletop-ish kind of side of things. So a lot of this game is going to be about you going through menus, trying to figure out what things are doing and where, and I did feel that was a little bit on the clunky side. I think the tutorial could have probably done a better job of explaining and streamlining how you're supposed to play the game, as a few people watching were even confused as to what the heck I was doing. But love the aesthetics of this game as well. This is peak pulp comics. If you love the look of a game like Freedom Force from back in the day, then this aesthetic is definitely for you. And I am genuinely curious to see where this game ends up and why I'm adding it to the list here. And now we go to something a little bit more action-y with Soulstice. This is a 3D action hack and slash. This is definitely not a Souls-like by any stretch of the means. We play as two sisters who are exploring a world, trying to fight back against corruption and evil and all that other dark fantasy stuff we've come to know and love. The key kind of unique elements of this game is that your ghost sister named Lute provides backup and support during combat. She can stun enemies, which kind of is your quote-unquote counter. She can also activate these kinds of fields that allow you to attack blue and red aura-enhanced enemies respectively. Now, the story itself definitely falls more on the generic fantasy side. I think I was kind of predicting all the beats and bosses while we were playing this. But the game definitely checks off the right boxes when it comes to the action. This feels more like a Devil May Cry-ish style game, as you'll be using different weapons, being able to switch between them in mid-combo, and you unlock different powers, perks, that kind of stuff. If you are looking for like a brand new original take on the hack and slash, then I don't think Soulstice is going to be the action game for you. But if you are someone who's a little bit tired of the Dark Souls, very slow methodical combat, and looking for another Devil May Cry-ish style game, then I would say at least give this one a check. Another game that I really enjoyed was Dungeon Drafters. This is a take on the kind of mystery dungeon, turn-based roguelike, but with a pinch of deck building thrown in. Your cards represent all the magic abilities, skills, and things you can use during combat, and you'll have to go through them as they are shuffled and placed into your hand. When you use a card, it gets put into the graveyard and it will not be recovered until you go to a kind of rest area and bring them back. So there is definitely a risk reward of when you use your best cards, do you just throw them at the nearest thing, that kind of stuff. I really like the UI for this game, that it shows you exactly where your spells will go, their ranges. If there's a secondary effect, it will show where that will spread as well. I would like to see maybe attack ranges as well in terms of what they can show, but the game definitely boasts a very impressive combat system. The fact that you only have 3 AP per turn, and AP is used both for spells and moving, will require you to do some creative thinking if you want to deal with enemies as quickly and as effortlessly as possible. Now, we did not get to see this in a demo, but the store page boasts a roguelite kind of affair with being able to upgrade like your home base, get unique characters with their own perks, that kind of stuff. So there is definitely a lot here, and the only reason why I didn't play more of it was I wanted to get to the other games to finish off the night. But Dungeon Drafters definitely has a high recommendation from me. I'm always looking for a new RTS game, and Heart of Muriet is a very interesting one. This is a voxel style game where instead of you directly controlling your armies, instead the game is played out territory by territory. You can see on the map in the bottom right that there's kind of like 3 main markers on there. Each one of those represents kind of a base node. If you can conquer that node, you then conquer the territory, allowing you to build any structures, research stuff, etc., etc. there. So your challenge, of course, is to move across the map node by node, territory by territory, in order to build up enough forces to take down your enemy. All the while, the enemy will be doing the same. You are limited based on the mineable resources, and the caret at the top of the screen represents your supply. Every unit you build is going to cost you supply, you need more farms. Now, the basic concept is pretty good. The one thing that I'm a little bit iffy on is the kind of unit management system. When you build units, they all enter kind of their respective tents in your area. And you can't just kind of right click and attack move over. Instead, you have to set an order, choose which units on your side you want to send over, and then issue the attack, as you just saw right there. It's not as, I think, elegant as the classic, Control A, right click, or A again, attack move across to the enemy base. There are different spells you can unlock, researches and tech, all that good stuff. And I was getting into this one. As I said at the start of the section, I'm always happy to see new takes on RTS games, and this one in a weird way reminds me a little bit of like Rise of Legends, with taking over the various nodes. If you're an RTS fan or just a strategy fan in general, I would at least give this one a check. They are doing a Kickstarter for this game at the time of me recording this piece. And we finally have come to the final review or spotlight for this video. Goblins of Elderstone is a kind of colony sim dwarf fortress light-ish kind of game. Instead of controlling Orcs or dwarves or humans, well, as the title suggests, we control goblins. At the start of the game, the world will be procedurally generated, and you'll also get 4 randomly chosen gods, whose favor and so on can either help or ruin your base. Your mission, as per usual of these games, is you must build a successful colony and keep your goblins happy, fed, and keep producing children, as you're going to need them year by year. One thing that I do find particularly interesting about this game that I like is that across the map you'll find your generic resource nodes, food, lumber, stone, that kind of stuff, but then there are elder resources. These will just constantly pump out an infinite supply of those basic resources. So this is not one of those games where you are on a timeline or a time limit before you run out basic resources and you're kind of in big trouble. Now, one thing that I'm not a huge fan of is the building trees or your building menu you see in the bottom right. You have the 4 kind of tracks there, and they're not really, I think, arranged in an order that is important for what you're going to use them for. This is very much a game that's built on you need to build the basic structures to get the resources to advance to the better resources, to then build more stuff, and rinse and repeat. The game does have some light combat in the form of the undead rising from graveyards during the winter time, and you can set your various goblins to defend and, of course, set up archery posts and whatnot. All the goblins will come with randomly starting points in 3 different stats that will affect which jobs they're good at, as well as randomly chosen traits in some cases that can be passed on if they are used in kind of the mating or birthing rituals that happen regularly. I like this one. I think the graphics and the kind of like almost I think voxel style look gives it a lot of charm. And this is not going to be like a dwarf fortress, one mistake and everyone dies, or you accidentally unleash lava and killed anyone. So if you're looking for kind of, I would say, a low to mid core difficulty colony sim, I would check this one out. And even if you are an advanced player, I would at least give this one a check with the demo and see if you enjoy it. So with everything said, we finally finished this Games of Gamescom piece. Thank you so much for watching. You'll find links to all the games down below. Do that liking, subscribing, and commenting. Check out our Discord and Patreon. And if you are an indie developer, and once again, you want me to look at your game for a future video that's not Gamescom related, please get in touch. Come back for daily discussions on game design here and on game wisdom, where it's in the art and science of games.